Are we looking at you most of the
Yeah,
time?
you're gonna
Or
look
we're
at me.
not.
Now, when
between-
you're talking to each other, absolutely look
Okay.
at each other, right? Don't worry about looking into a camera.
Okay.
So I'll ask some questions, and y'all can have some dialogue and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
right? So this, you forget my slate. You forget everything else. But
You
anyway,
do always forget.
yeah, got a whole little. Anyway, so this is Hard Rock Ranch, episode 2. This is session 1. Okay. All right. Okay, Bob, let's start with you. Give me your name and spell it for me.
With him?
I'm
Yep.
Bill
I'm sorry,
Tiffany.
Bill. Did I say Bob?
You did.
Bill.
My dad was Bob, so you were
You
close.
know what? I felt it. I felt it.
Bill Tiffany. My number is 214-236-2000.
Oh, spell your number.
Spell your name.
Bill, Bill, Tiffany, Tiffany.
Bill, where you from?
Grew up in Abilene, Texas, but I've spent 20 years overseas in Asia and Africa. Live in Irving, Texas now.
So what were you doing over in Asia and Africa?
Well, I was selling oil mainly. Born first in Singapore, had my first son born while we were in Singapore. The second son was also born in Singapore. My wife wanted to go back to the same doctor and hospital, but I always say he was made in Thailand. Then we moved to Malaysia for 2 or 3 years. Then we were in Tanzania in East Africa for 3 years. And the company I was with, Caltex Petroleum, moved from New York, where I had joined them, down to Las Colinas. Moved the headquarters. They wanted to get out of the New York taxes and all those nasty people in New York. So I was back in Irving for 5 years and then got the dream job. We moved to Kenya, lived in Nairobi for 4 years, which I absolutely love. And after that, we then moved to the Philippines. And then finally, they dragged me back into the head office as an officer for the company. But I said, no, send me back to Kenya. I'd rather stay there. That was perfect. So we had a good run.
Tanzania, Texas, Nairobi. So you pick up any Swahili or?
Most places we live. Now, my wife is a linguist. She speaks German, French, and Spanish fluently. And then everywhere we moved, she would try to learn the language. So she studied Mandarin in Singapore and got pretty good at it. You know, we'd go on an international flight for 12, 14 hours. I'd watch 3 movies and get drunk twice, and she'd be sitting there writing Chinese characters the whole time. How can you do that? But then I would always learn enough to ask for, give me another beer and where's the men's room? And that was the basics. But she's still fluent in Thai, good Malay, Swahili, Tagalog from the Philippines, bit of Mandarin. She speaks Texan, and that's a benefit. And then we were doing a program, a few years ago. I was involved in a group of international business people who were, get together once a year, and we'd have a little seance about what it's like doing business overseas. But we finally started up a leadership academy, and we'd bring in young, developing leaders from Central Eurasia, all the stands, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, you name it, plus Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, to bring them into Istanbul at Koç University and have a leadership conference with them to talk about leadership. And that was certainly something they benefited from, but our secret ambition was also to let them have their own network in those countries. And a lot of them, during the Soviet times, they were told to be a little suspicious of their neighbors, and maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. But we've got great friends from all over that part of the world. Anyhow, 2 months before we were going for the first time to Istanbul, my wife says, I don't speak Turkish. She went out and bought herself some CDs, teach herself Turkish. 2 months later, we're in Istanbul in that Grand Bazaar, and she's negotiating in Turkish for a carpet she wanted to buy. So she's the linguist. I could order a beer. That's about it.
I can say one thing in Turkish.
What's that?
Turkish Sharia, which means I don't speak Turkish.
Merhaba. That means thank you.
So whenever you guys go somewhere, because he's asking if you know anything. So when
No,
you
I
go
don't
somewhere,
know anything, but
I know, but when you go
I married the
somewhere,
right girl.
you just
That was
point
the
at her and say,
Yeah. No, that's why we don't go on a cruise, because I like to drive all over the world. And so we'll go to Europe, and every country we go into, she'll speak the language. So we can get by anywhere. So it works out well.
I love it.
I'm her driver, and she's the genius behind it.
Hey, you just let the window down.
Absolutely.
All right. Give us your name and spell it for me.
Norm Smith, Norm, just like it sounds. No, it's Smith.
Now,
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
Is Norm short for something?
Norman,
It is Norm. Okay.
yes.
But you like Norm.
I prefer Norm, yeah. I was Norman before I moved to Dallas, my entire life actually. But the nice thing about moving to Dallas and starting to work with, him and Brian and a bunch of other guys is nobody knew me, so I was able to, and actually, I don't think you guys refused to call me Norman, so it was always
No, I-
Norm. So it became Norm once I moved up here to Dallas like 25 years ago, so.
So you are officially Norm.
Yes.
There's no mention of you before the Norm.
Right, there you go.
All right. So, how do you guys know Brian? BR.
He told-
Yeah, we worked with,
We
well,
worked with him
you
for-
know him before I did, actually,
Well,
right?
briefly, yeah, we had gotten to know each other. And I'd spent a lot of time in the oil business, as I said, overseas. And Brian and I forget how we first met, but it was some headhunter came to me and said, well, there's this company that's starting up to do a great business of promoting gasoline sales by giving discounts on fuel by buying things in a convenience store, in a grocery store. And I was hired on to be the chief operating officer, and Brian was the marketing man. And we fell in love instantly, He's got the greatest sense of humor anybody I ever
Yeah.
worked with. And we've become lifelong friends since that time. That was about the year 2000, I think. So we've been good buddies for then.
And they eventually, obviously, this was technology, software, talk to the pumps, I guess, do all the rewards, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, they hired me, and I was living in Houston at the time. And I was working for a contracting company, and they asked me to come on board, so I came on board. And that's when I met BR while I was doing some contract work, I guess, for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then came on board full time. So that's how I know him. Same thing, actually. We both know him through that company. That's, he was one of the part owners of the company before we came on. So
So you're doing like software stuff? Or?
yeah, so it was actually kind of a ground up. We inherited some of the applications. It was running on Linux and Java, which was brand new at the time, and like nobody trusted Linux except the people who understood Linux. But anyway, yeah, so it was during that time. So we actually built up that entire application suite. And as he said, it was this, I guess, interesting concept of you go in the store and you buy stuff and you come out and roll the price down on the pump. So at the time, today, it's like, yeah, of course, everybody does that. But at the time, it was a brand new patented technology, patent pending technology. So, yeah.
And the reason
So we
he's
were
called
pioneers
Norm
of it.
is all of us who are not geeks, we didn't have, oh, please, Norman, Norm, come here, I need help,
That's right.
So Norm could always get it sorted out.
That's right. I'm only Norman when I go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So,
So Bill, you always have a translator near you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Application translator.
Yeah, that's right.
that's right.
Yeah.
There was one, speaking of translator, there was one thing that we did that it was, I don't want to go into the details of it, but it was essentially, it was an application that could talk to any of the dispenser types. And it basically would automatically figure it out, and it was multilingual, if you would say, to different device protocols. So BR dubbed it the Universal Translator from Star Trek, right? And that's essentially what it does, but
Yeah.
yes, it's so that's became the Universal Translator, and I don't think we ended up using that for the marketing name, but internally that was the project name. So
Hey, everybody understands it.
yeah,
But Brian was our creative director, though. He also came up with our logo, or sort of our brand, something we called the NOS.
yeah,
It's a fuel pump nozzle. And you put eyes on it, and it really spoke to people. It's something, when you
right.
saw it, you recognize, oh, these are the guys who do that,
that's right. He had a
good.
prototype in his, well, I guess it would be the prototype in his office. It was actually a gas nozzle, and he had a Groucho Marx glasses and mustache on it. And that was the NOS. That was actually, I think, his official first NOS that he sold the concept with. Anyway, and so, yeah, he adopted that as our...
So I know it's been like over 2 decades, but do you remember your first impressions?
Oh, I walked in. I knew everything. I'd been overseas. I'd run companies in East Africa and the Philippines. I was a corporate officer with Caltex. And I walked into this thing, and this was so totally new. Nobody had ever done it before. I mean, we sold gasoline in 65 countries in those days. It was owned by Chevron in Texaco. And then when Chevron took over Texaco, then it became a Chevron subsidiary. And those guys still today don't know how valuable it was to be overseas. But at any rate, I came in and I said, this is so creative that if Coca-Cola was offering a 30-cent discount on a 12-pack of Cokes, we would take that information and turn that into a 2-cent per gallon discount on 15 gallons, making the same 30 cents. But when somebody came into the store and bought something for 35, 40 cents, and that was fine. But then when they go to the pump and they swipe their card or punch in a code like we had, like in the old days of a car wash, and they would see that pump price drop, it was like eureka. How can this be done? And it had not been done anywhere. It was really ground level stuff. And Norm made it all work, and BR had the brains behind it. And I walked in there and told them, all right, guys, we can't spend all this money today. Let's wait another day.
That's right.
Can't spread it out.
That's right.
That's right.
You got to pay the big guy first, you know.
I remember the first time I met BR. I lived in Houston. The company was in Dallas, and the lab was actually in Oklahoma City. So anyway, they came down one time to do a demo, and the first time I saw him was you and him and Jason walking into my kitchen, where I had like my server set up and a console, and I'm showing them this like, you know, multi-processor communication thing that I'm sure they were all like going, looks like it works. I don't know what it is. But the first time I remember that though is I mean, Brian's a tall guy and he's a lot more slender than he used to be. And so, you know, it was just this big guy in my kitchen. But he was the most pragmatic, I think, of anybody that I've met. I mean, if you guys continue, you know, making and watching these videos, you're going to find out. He tells it like it is, and he boils it down so simply that you're going, yeah, that's what I was trying to say, you know. And he says it in 3 words, and you're going, yeah, that's so, yeah.
Yeah, truly one of the most creative guys I ever met, and it was a joy to get to know him and still have him as a good friend 25 years later.
Yeah.
So speaking of your 3 words, let's cut off 2 of those words and give me Brian in 1 word.
Oh gosh. BR in 1 word. That's hard. I can't think. You go, because I can't think.
Creative.
Creative. Yeah, he's more than that. Actually, BR, he's kind of my brother, but that doesn't necessarily answer your question.
Maybe it does.
But I honestly, I would say brother is the way I would, the first word that comes to my mind.
So let's just say there's somebody watching this in Taiwan. They studied English and they're practicing trying to figure out their English. And so they've never met Brian. You had to describe him. How would you describe him?
He's, I think, the proverbial long, tall Texan. That's probably the way I would describe it. So.
Look where we are. This is Brian in a nutshell. Nobody else would come out here and build a place like this in West Texas. Not desert, it's semi-arid here, but he just has a vision of things that nobody else can quite see. And that's why I say he's creative. He really comes up with some wonderful ideas. And that makes him a brother too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Don't get choked up over there. Get choked up. Oh, man. Just couldn't see that. Just threw me all off. It's okay. It's all right, though. All right. So you spoke about him being like a big guy.
Yeah.
Brian used to be a big guy. Always tall, but he used to be a big guy. So tell me about all that you know of the transformation, the diagnosis, the transformation from the big guy to just the tall guy. To all of that. Tell me about it.
He's, I guess over the years, you know, he found out that he has diabetes, and he actually, as we all do, it's like when I need to do something about it, and I don't. Right, I'm still going to keep my old habits, or I'll do it for 3 months, and then I'm back to doing whatever I was doing. So that's kind of what he was trying to do. I remember that there was a period of time where he was in the hospital for gallbladder, and I hope it's okay. We don't have to talk about that and publish all your medical history across the globe, but that was, I think, the first time that I remember was really a wake up call for him. That it was, I mean, that was a serious health problem, and he had to go into the hospital for it, and it turned out to be that. And I think that was the beginning that I remember of him start to actually lose weight, exercise. I mean, start taking care of himself. So, and then in the past probably 3 years, he took that up a notch. I mean, he would call me. Actually, probably longer than 3 years. He would call me. I would get a call at 8 o'clock in the morning. It didn't matter what day it was. Sometimes it'd wake me up earlier than that. And he'd just start talking about something, some new ideas that he had, that creativity thing. And he's saying, yeah, I'm out walking the dog and just, doing, and that's what he does. It's like, I'm out walking the dog and I have some thoughts and I want to run by somebody. So that's what he would do. But he was taking care of himself and exercising and doing that. I think he would walk at least like 2 5Ks. So he'd walk like 10K every day with that dog. So anyway, and then again, more recently, he's actually started to watch his diet as well. And I guess that's kind of where he learned how to do that and make the right recipes and eat the right food. So,
Bill?
I would agree that he was, unlike most people who say, well, I got a problem, I got to lose a little weight, such as Bill. When Brian realized it was real and he had to do it, he stuck with it. And very few people have the constitution to say, this is what I got to do, and I'm going to do it. And Brian has stuck with that. But that's kind of indicative of everything he's done in his life, of the time I've known him. When he sets his mind on something, he gets it done, and he sticks with it. And I used to say, well, I've got a beautiful golden retriever, and I walk her 3 times a day, but she's getting relatively old in her years as I am in mine. And so for a while we were competing. He said, well, I had to shine her out for 2 miles today. I said, yeah, well, or Paris and I were out for 2 miles. Yeah. And then he started saying, well, I've had 8 miles today. Well, okay, buddy, I surrender. You got that one. But he has stuck with it, and it's been inspirational to see him, because not many people have the wherewithal to make up their mind and then stick by it. And I think that's Brian in a nutshell.
So let's double down into that inspiration. So, because I got to be honest. When we met back up, we hadn't seen each other in a while. We met back up. And I was like, wow, man, this guy, he's half the man he used to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's slender.
Yeah. And it was an inspiration to me, right? So I don't know if we've had a conversation, but like I run a 5K at least 3 times a week now, right? At least 3 times.
Yeah.
So I do about 3.5 miles or so, and I'm looking at kicking that up some. Because I'm like, I could easily just do more, right? Getting my 10 to 14,000 steps in a day, and it's really a lot because of Brian. It's like, man, hey, I'm just, not that he told me I have to do it, like, but just being around, being inspired.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So seeing that, seeing the transformation, and even going back prior to that, the creativity on the job, anything that is Brian. Can you talk about anything that kind of inspired you from him?
As you said, I will say from my part is thinking outside the box. I think Brian did a lot for me in terms of not being conservative and actually just looking at anything, whatever it is, through different eyes, just getting a different perspective on it that you wouldn't normally, that I wouldn't have normally looked at. So that's one of the things he's inspired me there. And as you said about exercise, I'm kind of with Bill on that one, that I usually go out and walk, and I usually walk a 5K. It's about 3 miles. And he would tell me about, the amount of distance that he walked and whatever, and I'm thinking, I guess I ought to kick it up a notch, but I haven't done it. I still just do the 3 miles. But yeah, I would say the biggest inspiration I've gotten from BR is thinking outside the box. And this channel is actually a very good example of that. this site that he built,
Yeah.
this ranch that he built, and this channel. So.
There's very few people that I've known who could get me out of bed at 6:15 in the morning to jump in a car and come halfway to Abilene,
Yeah.
which is where I grew up, and get me out here in the middle of nowhere for a video. But I'd do anything for this guy. If he said, "Bill, can you jump off the top of the building?" "Yes, sir." "How far? You want me to hit the fire pit, or just how far should I go?"
Yeah.
But he is always thinking out of the box, and
Yeah.
it's fun to listen to him. And he'll call me up. I'll be sitting at my desk at home pretending I'm doing something worthwhile, and he'll call, and we'll talk for half an hour, and we'll cover 381 subjects, and they're all stimulating, and it's always fun to be with him on that.
Okay. Anything else y'all want to add to today about Brian? Anything?
Well, he has the good judgment to marry this lady, and they just had their 44th anniversary. So that's probably the
Very
smartest
good.
thing he's ever done. Yeah,
That is proof of his good judgment.
absolutely. There's been a few things I'd question, but not that one.
Well, I don't know if BR has said this to you or if you're aware, but BR is a private pilot. So he and I owned an airplane together, and that was another place where, matter of fact, I was just telling him some stories today, telling Bill some stories today about, BR. I still own the airplane. BR decided he wanted to do something different like this, but there are still things in the hangar and things in the airplane that are BR. So whether it's a workbench or ramps to get the airplane in and out of the hangar, whether it's, I think I was telling you about, there was a part of the console was kind of torn up, and he's like, "I got a fix for that." He went and got a poster board and made a little template, and then took it to a fabric shop and said, "I need you to make me one of these." And then he laid it in there, and I came out there one day and he's going, "Hey, I got to show you something." And it was like, "This looks brand new." What, but it's just thinking outside the box. That's what he does. So
two things real quick. Where's the hangar at physically?
in Arlington, Texas, yeah.
Oh, where at it?
Arlington Municipal Airport, yeah.
Okay, like on Matlock right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So.
remind me, we want to go just shoot it real quick.
Okay.
Just to, we'll take a little bit.
Yeah, shoot it with him in the airplane,
Yeah.
in the hangar. and that, yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's still yours. It's
that'll be,
just whatever.
yeah, that'll be an easy thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I want to hear some stories. I want to hear some VR stories. Come on, give me some good stories.
Oh gosh.
Let's see. What? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I can tell you one of the flying stories that I have. That's so the eclipse, not this one, but it was 2021. When was it? It wasn't during COVID. It was before that, 2018 maybe. Anyway, whatever the previous eclipse was, the center line was in. It came through Missouri. It made a diagonal, but it was north of Texas. And so he came up with the idea. He's saying, "We need to go see the eclipse." And okay, so we planned this trip, and we got in the airplane and we flew up to Hamilton, Missouri. And what was interesting is I mentioned that do we need to make any arrangements, or because I didn't know if people were going to be congregating. I've never been to an eclipse in the U.S. of like a full eclipse. So he's like, "I don't know." So he called up there, and he called me back a few minutes later. He said, "Yeah," he said. He said, "I called the guy where they got 3 slots left," and he said they need $20. So he said, I got us on it." I was like, "It was a good thing we called." So anyway, but he flew us up there, and we kind of exchanged, who's going to fly there, who's going to fly back. So, but yeah, so we flew up there, and we ended up, being able to see the eclipse. So that was actually a fun trip. I think that's the longest trip that he and I ever took in the airplane. We occasionally we go somewhere together. A lot of times we just use the airplane separately, but that was actually the longest trip we went on, and I think the most fun actually. We were out there. You typically at an air show you have airplanes that are out there and on static display, and people come in from the town or wherever, and they're like, "Ooh, look, airplanes," whatever. This airplane is a 1958 Piper Apache, which sounds like, oh, it's a vintage airplane. It's kind of just an old airplane. So, and it's not an absolutely beautiful airplane either, but it gets us where we needed to go. But so we're sitting out there, and we're going to watch the eclipse. So we parked the airplane on the ramp, and we've got our chairs, and we're sitting out there, and people walk up and they're like, "Tell me about your airplane." And so we're like going, "Oh, I kind of feel important now." And this guy would come up with stories about that airplane. It used to have a rose on the tail. I mean, it was like 2.5 feet wide, and it was big. It wasn't just like a little rose. It was the entire tail was this red rose. And the previous owner had put that on there, and he was from Washington, and it's their state flower and his wife's favorite, whatever. So he had painted it on there. And it cost a lot of money to get it off, so we never did that. He came up with so many stories when people would ask, always, so what's with the rose? That's always the question. And he would come up, the biggest one that I remember, the funniest one I remember, he told somebody, he said, "Well, believe it or not, this used to be the FTD Florist corporate airplane back in the day." And they were like, "Really?" And he said, "No, I can't back that up." So, but again, he's a cut up. So.
Yeah, I accidentally found out he was a pilot. We were talking, we have some land on a lake that no one's ever heard of, right?
Yeah.
It's in this place it's outside of Mahia in Groesbeck, and the lake is Lake Limestone.
Okay.
And he was like, "I don't know exactly where the lake is because he flies from lake to lake."
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because I'm like, how in the world would you ever know? It's in the, like literally, it's on the other side of nowhere. You get to nowhere, you get to the middle of nowhere, you got to keep going.
No, right.
All right, give me a good.
Well, first of all, I would got to say though that these are the techie guys. They're the creative types. Being management, I watched the thing on TV. That's where I saw the eclipse. They spent 3 days flying up
the
there.
eclipse on
Spent a
TV.
fortune to fly up there with all the gasoline and everything else.
I watched the news. Yep, there it is.
All right, that's it. That's the eclipse.
It worked.
All right, one time Brian and I were negotiating with one of the major food store chains, and we went to several different places. We went to Colorado for one chain. We went to California for another one, and they're all mixed up like the oil companies are these days. But flew into Eastern Washington, and we rented a car, and we were going to drive down to Boise and go through that beautiful area in Idaho. And about 2/3 of the way from, Eastern Washington until we were going to Boise, Brian said, "I don't feel so good," and he was feeling a little bad. I said, "Come on, Brian, you can't get this. I mean, you're the guy who's got to sell this." And we managed to get in there, and we got a hotel in Boise that night, and he was feeling terrible. I said, "My God, I hope he doesn't kick the bucket tonight, because I'm gonna have to take him all the." You ever see what's that, Lonesome Dove?
Yeah.
Where McCall had to take. I said, "I'm gonna have to drag him behind a cart, take him all the way back to Texas, bury him down by the Rio Grande." But no, the next morning we got up and had our appointment there, and he was on top of his game as always. Happy, go get him type of thing. We had a great meeting. Walked out of their office about 10 minutes. Said, "I think I'm going to die." But he did his show. He put on the presentation. We drove on down to Salt Lake City and flew out of there late that afternoon, I think, and got in here. And every bit of the way, he said, I think I'm done. I said, "Brian, you performed like a god back there. You did a great job." But this was the determination. But I was truly worried about him, and that's when I said, "He's more than my brother. I got to look at him. I'm his father now too." But we had some good trips together and a lot of fun.
All right, anything you want to add?
I'll tell you, there was one more story, and it was kind of funny. We were going to the trade show. We were going to a trade show, and I say we, and it was Bill and myself and BR and Jason Stansel was our CEO. And Steve Ellis, who was the IT manager. So Steve is kind of a little guy. I say little, he's a couple inches shorter than me, but kind of, average size. And I'm average size, or I used to be smaller than back then. And BR was bigger, as we said. Jason was a big old boy. And Bill, who's not necessarily big, but they're tall. They're big guys, I think all of you guys are over 6 foot. Whenever we'd stand around, it'd be the three of them and me standing there having a conversation. I'm looking it up at all of them. But I remember sitting there, and Steve and I were on the airplane, but we were in the row behind you guys. And so you have these three big guys, tall guys, and Steve and I were sitting there, and the seat in the middle is empty. We got lucky. And these three are literally spilled out into the aisle. because the three of them are having trouble fitting on that row. And so the whole flight, I don't remember if it was BR or if it was Jason's kind of out in the row like this. And Steve and I are back here, you know, just like reading a magazine, sipping our drinks. You know? And he was saying, "Do you want to switch with one of them?" I was, "No."
When we got the upper hand.
That's right.
They need to reach something that's over 6 foot. They go.
That's right.
Good deal.
So,
All right, well, we're going to cut right here, and we're going to switch around. But before we do, I want y'all to kind of look at each other and say, hey, you know, let's eat. You know, let's eat. You know, because we're going to cook. Okay?
all right.
Action.
You getting hungry?
Let's eat.
Good plan. Let's go get something to eat.
All right.
Good.
All right, good deal.
Oh, I love you guys. I love you guys.
And you know, we told that with a straight face, too.